Senator Joe Gimse will carry the flood relief legislation in the Senate. He's here now to talk a little bit about the hearing. Thank you for joining us, Senator.
Thank you for having me, Julie.
Let's begin. When you heard the administration's proposal with general fund spending of about $77 million, total spending of roughly $190 million, right. Did you have sticker shock at all?
Well, I guess I wouldn't call it sticker shock. You know, you always expect the unexpected in legislation and in this game, I guess. But it wasn't unexpected that they were going to put in a lot of provisions, and we'll just have to work through that.
And today's hearing was the first of what is likely to be several different hearings on this issue. As the man who's going to carry the legislation, what did you glean? What are you going to move forward with?
Well, I think we're going to move initially forward with those aspects of the bill that will be the matches for FEMA dollars, the matches to the federal portion of it, and to ensure that we have that covered initially. You know, the road and bridge work, I found out today for the first time, isn't FEMA eligible. So a lot of that we'll be putting the money up front as the state of Minnesota out of our trunk highway funds, and then be reimbursed somewhere down the road 4, 5, 6 years from the federal government after we've completed those projects. So there's a lot of twists and turns in this already. But you know, it's a process that we move forward with.
FEMA has already indicated it's not going to cover any personal property loss. That decision is currently being appealed, but let's assume it's going to hold. Do you think the state should help assist individuals who don't have any kind of insurance to cover the damages that they had?
Well, I think the air around here is clear that we don't want to set precedent that will be reflected in future legislatures and future disaster recoveries, and that's where we're going to be extremely cautious in that we don't move forward in a way that opens the floodgates, if you will, sorry about the pun, but to the possibility of this becoming uncontrollable to the degree that personal responsibility, people who should be buying insurance don't buy insurance because they'll think that the state government or the federal government will take care of them. We don't want to get into that type of a scenario where during these types of events that personal responsibility isn't a part of the equation. But we're going to be very careful about precedent setting in this bill.
Would the state be willing to go above the FEMA match amount at this point?
Well, it's obvious that the governor and the administration feel that we should.
What about the Senate?
Well, you know, we're going to stick to what we know. I think to start out with, like I said, the FEMA match, the federal government matches, and that's still very significant. Those dollars are, you know, up over that 200 or 110 million that was originally projected. We are way above that. We want to take a good look at what the items are that are in that bill. Some of it is individual funding, funding for the RIM program was unexpected. You know, some of the funding for deed, which would be for businesses and that had received some damage. Those reflect individual contributions by the taxpayers of the state of Minnesota. We want to take a close look at what precedent has been set and if we are going to move forward with those types of things.
It's fair to say, judging from our conversation here, that you're going to be very fiscally, I don't want to say conservative, that's not but very responsible in really looking at every dollar that the state has spent. So according to management and budget, the $77 million will take up roughly $55 million from the general fund reserves, from our budget reserves, excuse me. So what does that say to you? Are you cautious about going this deep into our reserves, taking money away from schools and other programs?
Well, and that is the direct impact of going into the budget reserves. Of course, the way they put it to us is that they'll draw down the reserves based off of current law, which requires the reserves to be backfilled before anything goes back to our schools in the form of paying back that shift. We are very sensitive to that, and that'll be a topic of discussion. I heard the conversations around the table already today about the concerns with that. So yeah, we're going to be looking for all possible avenues within the general fund that currently exist before we take a look at tapping into those budget reserves. That's the direction I believe we'll be heading.
Senator, I want to talk a little more broadly about James Nobles, from the Office of Legislative Auditor, and they came in and they discussed a report in this hearing on disaster recovery. And I want to know about what's your impression on that report and the timing given this situation?
Well, that report came out in March, which was an extremely busy time for the legislature. We didn't have an opportunity to thoroughly vet it, but what did strike me about the report is the inconsistencies from disaster to disaster in how we manage the relief proposals and how we move forward. And like the auditor said, we need to come up with a better way of managing this so that we can meet the expectations of our local units of government, but also give some predictability to those local units as they start to assess the damage in the first responses and move forward with the repairs.
And Mr. Nobles did ask that the 2013 legislature look to expand the framework and clear up some ambiguity on reacting to natural disasters. So given that, do you think there might be a little more pressure on you on crafting a piece of legislation that could be used as precedents in the future?
Well, I think that's exactly the point. And, he made it quite clear that there are inconsistencies. We don't want to reach outside the boundaries of where we've been in the past and start something and start down the road to opening this up to areas that we didn't want to go to. And so we'll be looking at the Legislative Auditors Report, certainly moving forward, but also we'll be looking at it as guidance as we put together this bill.
At the end of the hearing, Representative Mary Murphy essentially stated she had sticker shock, but it was different. Hers was that she thought the numbers would be higher. Is this kind of setting some kind of a I don't want to say a fight, but is there going to be some contention over this bill where sometimes these things tend to be fairly nonpartisan and quick?
Well, it's my hope that it won't set up contention or that it will take anything away from the bipartisan hopes that I have that we'll be able to craft a bill, craft it quickly, get the relief to the people who need it, get things back to normal for them or as close to normal as we possibly can. But, she lives in that district. She's close to it. She feels it every day in her heart, and when she's out there door knocking and talking to people, I understand from that perspective her passion and desire to meet every single need. But as lawmakers, legislators, policymakers, I don't think we have that liberty all the time.
Okay, so Senator, my last question for you then is, what would you like to say to the people in that area as they're waiting for things to proceed down here at the state level?
Well, just trust that we're going to craft our legislation as quickly as possible, be working with the administration and the departments, and we're going to try to get the relief to them just as quickly as we can here. We know that they're waiting for it, and like Senator Reinert had said, winter's coming.
And of course, Senator Joe Gimse, we will televise the special session on the day that it does happen. Thank you for coming in and talking at such an early stage on this legislation.
Thank you, Julie.